Dawn breaks over a shattered landscape in northern France, 1944. The air is heavy, thick with the scent of gunpowder and mud. The war has passed through here, but it has not left. Beneath the quiet soil, death still waits. Each patch of earth, every puddle, every mound of dirt could be a trap. Hidden beneath the mud lie thousands of killers, landmines left behind by retreating German forces. To the naked eye, the field looks still. But to those who walk it, it feels alive, humming, watching, waiting. Visual, slow, cinematic shots of soldiers inching forward, boots sinking into mud, faces tense, detectors sweeping side to side. No rifles, no grenades, no glory, only patience, only the soft hum of metal against magnet, and the steady rhythm of breath beneath a steel helmet. These are combat engineers, the silent soldiers of the unseen front. Their enemy is not across the field, but beneath their feet. Each step could end everything. Each movement could mean the difference between life and vaporization. Yet in their hands, these men carry something extraordinary, a device that hums with quiet power, a disc-shaped coil connected to a small control box, its needle twitching like a heartbeat. To most, it looks strange, even primitive. But to those who use it, it is the difference between life and death. What they hold is a mind detector, a creation born from physics and desperation. It uses magnetic fields to see the unseen, to feel the faint pulse of metal buried beneath the soil. The Germans had built minefields they believed would hold the Allies for weeks, perhaps months. But they had not counted on this. They had not imagined that science, invisible, intangible, could unmake their invisible wall of death. Visual. Close-up of a soldier's face, sweat dripping down as a detector hums. A faint click. Everyone freezes. A pause. Then a sigh of relief as a buried mine is uncovered, disarmed and marked with a white flag. No one writes songs about these men. No one remembers their names. Yet every tank that rolls forward, every infantry line that advances safely, does so because someone faced the dirt and listened. Their war is not fought in the sky or across seas, but in inches. It's a war of science against fear, of magnets against mines. This is the story of how America's engineers, scientists, and soldiers wage a hidden war. One fought not with bullets, but with magnetic waves. A war where victory was measured not in captured cities, but in lives saved. A war the Germans never saw coming. Visual montage. Maps of Europe, German engineers planting mines, Allied scientists drafting blueprints, American soldiers sweeping beaches. In a world obsessed with tanks, guns, and generals, the Allies found power in something smaller, something invisible, a silent weapon that turned the tide of battle, one field at a time. By late 1943, the German war machine had begun to slow, then to break. The great offensives that once thundered across Europe, Poland, France, the Soviet Union, were gone. Now, the Reich was on the defensive. Every mile lost to the Allies came at a cost, and every retreat left behind something deadly. Across the continent, Hitler's engineers turned Europe itself into a weapon. They dug, planted, and buried their vengeance. In the hedgerows of Normandy, the forests of the Ardennes, the valleys of Italy, the ground was seeded with millions of mines. They came in every shape and form. The Teller mine, a flat steel disc capable of blasting apart a Sherman tank. The S mine, nicknamed Bouncing Betty, which leapt waist-high before detonating in a storm of steel. And the most insidious of all, the magnetic mines, designed to sense a metallic mass in an approaching vehicle and explode without a single touch. To the Germans, these devices were more than weapons. They were equalizers. Where their tanks and planes faltered, the earth itself would fight for them. Visual. Slow pan across German engineers kneeling in mud, planting charges under cover of night. A wooden sign hammered into ground reads Minen, with a skull painted on it. From the beaches of Normandy to the banks of the Rhine, the Reich's engineers buried an empire of invisible death. In total, by the end of 1944, they had planted over 80 million mines across Europe. Every road, every bridge, every field became part of Hitler's final line of defense. It was a defense not concrete or steel, but of fear. Visual. Allied infantry halted on a country road, scanning the ground ahead. The camera pans to a soldier's face, his eyes fixed downward, hand gripping a detector coil. To the advancing Allies, these minefields were like ghosts. You couldn't see them. You couldn't shoot them. And yet, they killed more efficiently than bullets. Clearing them by hand was slow, dangerous, and brutal. Soldiers crawled on their bellies, probing the dirt with bayonets or knives. One wrong move, and the world ended in a flash. For every 10 yards gained, someone didn't come back. Sound cue, a faint metallic click, followed by a deafening explosion and silence. The Germans were proud of this invisible army. To them, it was proof of ingenuity, of a nation that could weaponize the unseen. Even as their cities burned, they believed the minefields would buy time. Time to regroup. Time for miracle weapons. Time for the Allies to bleed. But the truth was far darker. Every minefield they left behind also trapped civilians. farmers returning to their homes, children playing near abandoned roads. The war would end, but the killing would not. By 1944, large parts of France and Belgium were uninhabitable, the soil itself poisoned by war. And yet, in the laboratories of American Britain, a counterforce was forming, scientists and soldiers determined to fight back not with brute strength, but with intellect. They asked a simple question. If the Germans could use magnetism to detect tanks, could the Allies use it to detect the mines themselves? The answer would come not from a general or a politician, but from a quiet engineer with a coil of copper wire and a dream that the invisible could be defeated by the invisible. Visual montage. American scientists at drafting tables, blueprints of circular coils, a hand soldering a wire. The hum of electricity fills the air. Germany had turned the ground into a weapon. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't imagine, was that the Allies were about to turn science into theirs. The war beneath the soil was about to change. While soldiers fought with rifles and courage, another army, unseen and unarmed, prepared for battle in laboratories and workshops across America. From Fort Belvoir, Virginia, to MIT's Radiation Laboratory and the secret research centers of the Office of Scientific Research and Development, the Allies summoned their brightest minds. Their mission, defeat the mine. Among them was Lieutenant Josef Kosacki, a Polish engineer whose early design for a magnetic mine detector changed everything. His invention used electromagnetic induction, the simple truth that metal distorts magnetic fields. By sending a current through coiled copper wire, Kosacki made the invisible detectable. It began as theory on a chalkboard and became a lifeline in the mud of Europe. Soon, American engineers refined the idea into the SCR 625 mine detector, a device that looked almost magical. A circular coil, a power pack, and a needle that twitched when danger hid beneath the soil. For the men who carried it, that twitch meant life or death. The Germans had believed their minefields unbeatable, but they hadn't counted on physics or the quiet genius of those who turned magnetism into a weapon of mercy. From the laboratories of America, a new kind of warfare was born. One fought with coils, current, and courage. June 6, 1944. D-Day. The beaches of Normandy are a living inferno. Shells tear the horizon. Waves churn red with blood, and steel obstacles, jagged check hedgehogs, and mines-wired artillery shells turn every tide into a killing ground. But amid the chaos, another kind of hero advances. They are the combat engineers, men burdened not with rifles, but with shovels, wire cutters, and the strange humming coils of the SCR 625 mine detector. Under relentless fire, these engineers crawl forward, sweeping the sand in wide arcs. Each faint beat could mean a mine or a chance to save hundreds. With every step, they cut detonator wires, mark safe lanes with white tape, and clear paths for landing craft and tanks. Some never make it. The detectors hum one last time before the sand erupts beneath them. Yet others press on, clearing the way for the invasion's lifeblood, the Shermans and half-tracks that begin to roll ashore by midday. By nightfall, the impossible has happened. The beachhead holds. The Germans believed their minefields would halt the Allies for days. Instead, they were breached in hours. And across the channel, Allied ships used massive magnetic sweepers, cables dragging in the sea, creating false fields that detonated German naval mines prematurely. Science had become shield and sword, turning magnetism into salvation. By early 1945, the mighty Rhine River stood as Germany's final barrier, a natural fortress of water, steel, and explosives. Every bridge, every crossing point had been prepared for destruction. Hitler's orders were absolute. No Allied soldier must cross the Rhine alive. The riverbanks were deadly. Mines of every kind, Teller mines, S-mines, and magnetic charges, lay buried beneath mud and snow. Even the bridges themselves were booby-trapped, wired with explosives hidden inside their steel frames. But the Americans had changed the game. Engineers of the 9th Armored Division, approaching the town of Remagen, discovered the Ludendorff Bridge miraculously still standing. It was rigged to blow, yet the charges had failed to detonate. As riflemen secured the far bank, combat engineers rushed forward. Under constant artillery fire, they swept the planks and girders with magnetic detectors, scanning for hidden triggers and live fuses. The detectors hummed, the air filled with tension and then relief. The bridge was safe. Within hours, American Shermans thundered across the span. The impossible had happened. The Rhine, Germany's sacred river, had been breached. Across other sectors, Oppenheim, Wesel, and Koblenz, engineers repeated the feat, clearing minefields and ferrying troops with magnetic precision. The wall of mines that was meant to stall the Allies for weeks collapsed in days. Magnets, not explosives, had opened a gateway into Germany's heart. May 1945. Europe lay in ruins. The guns that had thundered for 6 long years finally fell silent. Cities stood in ashes, rivers choked with wreckage, and the smoke of a dying Reich drifted into history. The world celebrated its generals, its victories, and the men who stormed beaches and crossed rivers. But behind every triumph, behind every safe step forward, stood another kind of soldier, the engineer, the scientist, the quiet warrior armed not with rifles, but with magnets and mathematics. The magnetic detectors that guided men through minefields became the foundation for modern mine clearing, aviation safety, and submarine defense. The wartime SCR 625 evolved into post-war mine detectors and magnetometers, tools still used today in humanitarian demoning and geological exploration. Even in the Cold War, the same principles helped detect submarines lurking deep beneath the oceans, an unseen echo of that hidden war fought underfoot in 1944. Captured German reports revealed disbelief. They couldn't comprehend how their minefields, their invisible walls of death, had been neutralized so swiftly. They blamed sabotage, spies, divine luck. Never did they imagine the answer was science itself. A few coils of copper, a pulse of electricity, and the courage of men who walked into minefields knowing one wrong step meant death. They fought not for glory, but for the chance to let others live. In a war of destruction, they proved that human ingenuity could be its own kind of weapon, one that saves rather than kills. The war of magnets was fought in silence, but its victory still hums beneath our feet.